Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If I can have your attention for a few seconds. Our service of Bob is just about to commence. Now, I just ask if you've brought a mobile phone into the chapel with you. It's okay, we're not confiscating them. Just either put it on silent or switch it off, thanks, that would be great. We are streaming today's service, which means the microphone is live. If you are discussing any absent relatives, just be mindful of what you might be saying. Thanks, everyone.
Mona Lisa, men have named you. You're so like the lady with a mystic smile. Is it only 'cause you're lonely they have blamed you for that Mona Lisa strangeness in your smile? Do you smile to tempt a lover, Mona Lisa? Or is this your way to hide a broken heart? Many dreams have been brought to your doorstep. They just lie there and they die there. Are you warm, are you real, Mona Lisa? Or just a cold and lonely, lovely work of art? Do you smile to tempt a lover, Mona Lisa? Or is this your way to hide a broken heart? Many dreams have been brought to your doorstep. They just lie there and they die there. Are you warm, are you real, Mona Lisa? Or just a cold and lonely, lovely work of art? Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brad Tyler Webber. My role here today is to help you all celebrate the life of and pay tribute to the late Robert James Miller, or as known by most, Bob. Bob passed away on the 6th of March, 90 years of age. On behalf of Bob's wife Helen, daughter Pat, son Greg, and of course the extended families, thank you all so much for your presence here today at the Mackay Family Chapel. I know the family wish to express a huge heartfelt thank you, whether you've travelled from near or far to be here this afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming to say your farewells and of course to pay tribute to Bob's life. If you've joined us online this afternoon, once again the family would like to say thank you for taking time out of your day and joining us with an online presence. As much as your thoughts and prayers with us here in the chapel saying farewell, we're also thinking of you having to say your farewells remotely. But again, thank you for joining with us this afternoon. Now, Bob was born on the 17th of February 1933 to parents Zara and Jack at Brompton Street, Marrickville. Bob was one of 9 siblings. Fourth born, older brother Jack, Alan and Keith, younger sisters Maureen, Aileen, then came Kevin and Mervyn, and a baby sister Patricia, who unfortunately passed away at 6 months of age. Bob attended Enmore Primary and then on to Marrickville High. Once schooling was finished, he kicked off as a truck driver, driving primarily for AJ Cook and Sons. They were paper manufacturers in Botany, New South Wales. He then progressed onto some heavy machinery, bulldozers and loaders, working for Malabar Excavations at the Anzac Rifle Range Industrial Waste Disposal Site behind the South Maroubra Beach. This was with his older brother Alan and his brother-in-law Ray. After moving to the Central Coast and into semi-retirement, Bob drove school buses for a living. He worked for the Red Bus Company for many years before his eventual retirement. He grew up Edgware Road in Marrickville. He married a beautiful young girl by the name of Helen Ball, married at St All Saints Church, Petersham in Sydney, New South Wales on the 4th of August 1956. If my maths serve me correctly, they were married for 67 years. Now apparently Bob didn't live far from Helen, and he had a mutual friend in the street. Bob would ride his push bike past Helen's place, which was Camden Street in Newtown, and would just have to stop and chat with her and her sisters. This was where the relationship blossomed. They have 2 children, Patricia and Greg. From the 2 children, they were blessed with 4 grandsons, Tim, Rob, Alex and Lucas, and 1 great-granddaughter, Lily. If you were to offer Bob a drink, it'd be a beer or a good whiskey. His favourite meal was corned beef with white sauce and veg. Pretty hard passing up a Sunday roast, and if you were going out for dinner, Chinese was his preferred. Now Bob loved tinkering with his cars. He did own an SLR Tirana for many years, which he loved playing with. Loved water skiing with family and friends in the younger years. And when the grandsons came along, he loved spending time with them. He'd sit down and they'd build models out of old paddle pop sticks, which some of the grandsons still have today. He loved going to the Speedway with Helen and his brother-in-law Ray. Rugby league match of the day at the Sydney Cricket Ground with his mates. Henson Park to watch the mighty Newtown Bluebags. On holidays with Brett, Jack, Keith and Val up to Foster and Bateman's Bay. He absolutely loved being with Helen, with his family and with friends. Bob loved when his friends, neighbours would all come together at the Norberta Street home at the entrance for an impromptu get-together or barbecue. It would start before lunch and quite often carry on right through late in the evening. Bob's greatest love, of course, apart from Helen, was the grandkids. He could spend hours and hours teaching, playing, entertaining. Nothing filled his heart with greater love and laughter than when being with Tim, Rob, Alex and Lucas. However, when little Lily came along, the first great-grandchild and a girl stole his heart. This brought a whole new wave of joy for both Bob and Mum. Lily will have her 3rd birthday party in April this year. I'm going to ask the first of the grandsons to come forward, Robert, and share some thoughts and memories of his pop.
A couple of things before I start. I've read this over and over and it doesn't get any easier, so bear with me. And secondly, any jokes made about Uncle Greg are either made with insult or love. I'll let you guys decide. I might swear Nan. Sorry. Pop said it was okay. Pop, Robert, Bob, Bobby, Pappy, Grandpa Dog, or simply just mate. However you knew Pop, we can all agree no matter what walk of life you came from, family or not, you knew you were loved and you knew you had a friend for life. There wasn't a day that went by in our younger years when we wouldn't be jumping out of our skin with a smile from ear to ear to visit Nan and Pop. And I'm sure my cousins would agree, I don't think anything's changed in my 34 years of life. Pop, you gave us so much of your time with each visit, and countless memories we'll never forget and cherish forever. From after-school rides on the buses, waving from the other side of Norberta Street, to spending our days at Shelley Beach, Blue Bay, or getting smashed by the waves off the entrance bars. Alex, I think you've still got a scar from this. We would spend hours coming up with our next great adventure or extreme sport we wanted to try, building skate ramps in the backyard, borrowing shovels to build BMX jumps, carving sandboards out of masonite and sliding down north entrance sand dunes only for one of us to eat a face full of sand. I think you take the cake here again, Alex. No matter what the next ridiculous idea was, you were there for us to make it happen and laugh or cry with us at the outcome. With each idea, you taught us so much along the way, from riding bikes to water skiing, small-scale construction and safely using power tools at the age of 5, and even making our own sinkers from lead flashing to go and catch dinner. I don't know about the legalities of that or whether it was safe, but things were different in the 90s. Still to this day, I have no idea where the seemingly endless supply of timber, nails, glue, screws, drill bits, tools came from your garage. Whatever we needed, you had it, or you'd find it for us. The garage was like an ancient treasure chest, or at least we thought it was. You taught us so many life lessons along the way. Good behaviour mostly. The thread of, you get a foot up the arse in a minute, usually did the trick. Said with love. My personal favourite was a swift clip across the back of the head if you were being a dope. And Greg, I distinctly remember being on the receiving end of a few of yours, so I must run in the family. Mum, thanks for not being like your brother. Luckily for all of us boys, we were such angels that we escaped most punishment. Instead, we were met with advice to grow up big and strong and do all the right things. An insight to some of Pop's advice for glowing appearance. I'll never forget being cleaned up or getting cleaned up for dinner after a day at the beach. Pop hurrying us along to dry our hair and get dressed, offering one of his trademark invigorations. For those that don't know, that consisted of Pop roughing your hair with a towel at full force until you thought your scalp was coming next. Helps your hair grow thick and strong, he'd say. So we did. Greg, I think you stitched you up there, mate. It's the only thing getting me through this. Pop taught us the value of family, integrity, manners, and never going to bed angry. He had an amazing way of making us realise we were, on rare occasion, being idiots over nothing, all with a laugh and a smile. I wonder what the poor people are doing, he'd say, highlighting just how grateful and lucky we were. I'll skip the next bit. It involves swearing. Pop always had advice and encouragement for always trying to be our best self, no matter what sport we'd play or hobby we tried our hands at. He was proud as punch with whatever progress we had, great or small. I have no doubt when Mum and Dad decided drums and guitar were a great thing for Christmas, he was over the moon with the noises we created in the years after. But he endured them nonetheless and told us we were rock stars, so we felt we were. We followed this up with a new extreme sport after new extreme sport, and I'm still amazed that the four of us are still here. As we got older, the conversations turned more mature, and we graduated from shandies to beers, and we did have a few of those. I can't leave today without giving some closure to a particular whiskey incident in recent years, Nan. I'm sure Pop's happy that most of you weren't there to witness him talking dribble for a few hours. But I just wanted to say Nellie still loves you, mate, and she's here today with us, so you must be forgiven. I'll also never forget the first time I heard Pop drop the F-bomb. First and only time, I might add. Never would dare in front of Nan. He apologised, of course. I laughed. And I felt like we really turned a leaf that day. No more soap in the mouth or kicks up the arse. In later life, the tables turned for us somewhat. I felt like it was us who were the proud grandkids. And we still are, mate. You've raised two amazing children. We were lucky to call it off our parents. Or Unky Greg. It's you, mate. You've provided such an amazing life for everyone around you. I think everyone in the room today would agree some of their fondest memories have been shared with Pop and company. This is the part where everyone raises their hand and says yes. Because it gets a bit harder. I wrote a lot, sorry. Your unwavering love and dedication for your beautiful wife, our Nan, is an inspiration to us all. That's something we'll treasure forever. You showed us the right things to do and say, a shining example. How to treat a lady, how to raise her family, how to laugh and how to love. You've welcomed our friends over the years with open arms and brought people you've never met to tears with the stories we've passed on to them. What a bloody good bloke, they would say, and that you are. Pop, you'd always rouse on us for sleeping in on holidays. We were missing the best part of the day, you'd say. Well, the best part of the day lost a little bit of its sunshine when you left us. But I can promise you when it comes up, we'll be thinking of you and just how grateful we are for the life we had with you. I've never been prouder to share your name. I don't think any of us have ever been prouder to be your grandsons. And we'll do our level best from here on in to make you proud. We'll miss you dearly, we love you greatly, and we'll look after Nan for you, mate. Love you.
Thanks for sharing, Robert. Alex, you're right to come forward.
It's a bit short and sweet. Pop was not only a husband to Nan, a brother, a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather, but a best friend to us all. Pop always had the time and patience for us no matter what it was, building skate ramps, taking us fishing, or going for bike rides down to the beach. And he created some of the best memories that we'll cherish for the rest of our lives. I miss you, Pop, and I hope you're now resting easy. I love you always.
Thanks, Alex. Lucas, you ready to come forward?
To sum Pop's life up in a few short sentences wouldn't be possible, so instead I'll share a few short lessons from the many Pop taught me growing up. Lesson 1, always be 10 minutes early. Even if you have to wait for everyone else, they won't have to wait for you. Lesson 2, keep an eye out for others. Lesson 3, finish your dinner, not just for the promise of a dessert, but because the person that cooked it put their love and heart into it. And finally, lesson 4, good whiskey is best enjoyed with good company. I'm going to miss you, Pop, but the love and care you have for your family lives on in your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Thank you. I'm going to miss you.
Thanks, Lucas. We're going to pause the service now for a few moments. We're going to put some images up on the screen from Bob's life. You've each arrived today carrying your own memories of Bob. You've all shared a moment, a time, a place. What this does now gives you an opportunity to grab a few more memories, add them to the ones that you've arrived with today, and leave with an even bigger picture of Bob's life.
Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me, how the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way, and forevermore. That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable in every way, and forevermore. That's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me, how the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way.
Greg, you're right to come forward.
Thank you. Wish me luck, folks. Firstly, I'd like to start with Rob. I've never liked you. Look, I'm not much of a speech maker. It's obviously it's difficult for all of us here today, but from my perspective, looking out at everybody here, everybody online, watching online, I can't thank you enough for being here. It means so much to Mum and I, Trish, the family. It's incredible to be part of this family. It's difficult to express like a lifetime of memories with Dad in a few short minutes. I struggled with it for quite a few days to try and come up with something. A lot of it is probably what Brad's kindly mentioned earlier in the eulogy, but some of the things I remember most about Dad, particularly as a very young boy, is that I always felt like Dad was this big, imposing figure. He was a big man, and when I was very young, I obviously felt, in Dad's presence, I always felt extremely safe. that nothing could touch me with Dad. He was my hero, and with him around, everything always seemed well in the world. My fondest memories as a young fella, Brad mentioned earlier, as I say, going to watch the Mighty Blue Bags at Henson Park with Uncle Ray, my cousin Steve, and Steve and I played for St Peter's in Junior Rugby League, and Dad adored coming to watch us play. He was so supportive with us as young kids. He used to get out the old army duffel bags. I don't know if you remember the old army duffel bags from the disposal stores, and he'd fill them with rags. He'd make Steve and I tackle them for hours and hours, telling us to hit them hard and hit them low. They can't run without legs. That's what I remember, back in those days. We also loved, again, as I say, Brad touched on it earlier, we loved going to the Sydney Showground Speedway on a Saturday night. Even reminiscing the other night, sitting in the lounge room at home, making a few notes. I swear I could smell the racing fuel and hear the roar of the bikes and the cars, and it just took me back to that time, which was absolutely wonderful. As I think Rob touched on also, as I grew older with Dad, I began to appreciate Dad in other ways. The standards that he set for me as a young man, and the standards that he lived by, I think have stuck by me. Good manners, punctuality. We touched on that earlier. If you're going to do something well. His greatest piece of advice to me was, mate, don't be a mug. Nobody likes a mug. And I realised at that time that Dad was a bit of an anthropologist as well, because he reckoned he could spot a mug a mile away just by the contour of their head. I'm not quite sure how he could, but he was right most of the time. Sadly, at times for us, the punctuality side of things was a little bit painful. He insisted on being an hour early for absolutely everything, weddings, parties, doctor's appointments and so forth. I'm sure in some way, shape or form that he was here an hour before everybody else today. But that was his big thing. You had to be on time. Dad loved water skiing. His boat, Blue Boy. Both Mum and Dad were accomplished skiers, and they loved spending days on the lake, skiing, fishing, sometimes prawning. I have to say though, I'd spent a lot of time with Dad in the boat on Tuggerah Lakes, and things didn't always go to plan with Dad at the helm. I know on one particular day, myself, Dad and Mike were coming back from Wyong Creek, and we were doing about 40 mile an hour. It was a Saturday morning, beautiful morning, and we hit a sandbank at about 40 mile an hour, come to an abrupt halt. Thankfully I was up the front of the boat, Mike was up the back of the boat, and all I can remember is Mike coming past us at about 40 mile an hour and then ending up under the bow of the boat, and Dad's only response was, "Jesus, I'm sure those channel markers were over there last week." He took no responsibility whatsoever. Look, to everybody that knows Dad, it goes without saying that he loved nothing more than his family and friends. Backyard barbecues at the entrance were legendary. He cherished his annual holidays with Mum, where they went away with Uncle Keithy, Auntie Val, Uncle Jack, Auntie Bet, Uncle Alan, Auntie Betty and Bones, up to places like Bateman's Bay, Foster, and others. I could go on for hours how much he adored his grandkids, despite the ordinary maturity of some of them in the group. No names mentioned, Rob. And obviously Tim, Rob, Alex, and Luke you were the world to Dad, and obviously by your own thoughts today, you've expressed that clearly, that the feeling was mutual. Again, we mentioned that when Lily came along, the first girl in the family, and wonderful granddaughter, Dad and Mum were just over the moon. But I have to say, despite the grandkids, despite Trish and I, despite Lily, Dad's greatest love was Mum. And again, touched on earlier, 67 years together. They grew up in Newtown, part of large families. As mentioned earlier, both worked long hours. Dad worked often 2 or 3 jobs at a time to just make sure that we had food on the table. And those 2 or 3 jobs, they go right back to the 60s and 70s. Times were pretty tough back then. But I can honestly say that we never wanted for anything. The house was always full of love. There was always food on the table. And I often don't know how Mum and Dad managed, but they did. And obviously married all that time. Both were devoted to each other, and I know over time that their devotion only grew stronger. I won't dwell too much on the events of the last 6 months. We all know that both Mum and Dad had some major challenges in their life regarding health. But I can say for both of them, the determination for them to be there for each other through really tough times. I'll take a moment. Their determination to be there for each other was something to behold. As I say, when they were both at their absolute worst from a health perspective, I can say to Mum that Dad just wanted to be there for Mum every day, visits to hospital. As Dad's condition worsened and he became weaker and weaker, there were days where I'd say to Dad, just have a rest day. Mum knows you love her. Just have a day off, give yourself a bit of a break. But regardless, Dad insisted that he be there for Mum. Just get me to the hospital, mate. Sorry to be a nuisance. I just want to sit next to Mum, hold a hand, be there and spend time with Mum. And as I say, that was for a lifetime. But on behalf of Mum and Dad, moving on, is, as I say, I don't want to dwell too much on that. How grateful we are to have such beautiful family and friends. There's been a lifetime, not just recently, there's been a lifetime of love, laughter and support from everyone here in the room, everyone looking in from elsewhere. As I say, we're grateful for that lifetime of support, love and affection, never more so than obviously the last few months, where it's just been absolutely overwhelming. The support, the phone calls, the visits from everybody. Without exception. I know it will embarrass probably a few in the room, but I would like to single out just a few folks that are really above and beyond. Paul, I can't see Paul. I know he's in the room here somewhere, but Paul's Mum and Dad's neighbour. Paul's a retired paramedic, and I can say, through the last 4 or 5 months when Mum and Dad were both, they had some huge health battles. Paul would basically call in almost every day to perform welfare checks on Mum and Dad. Sorry, I can just see you up there, Paul. Take my hat off to you, mate. You're a neighbour to Mum and Dad that's turned into a lifelong friend to me. Thank you very much for your involvement in my family. And as I say, Paul's background was also a great comfort to us when things were at times going to pieces at home with a few medical emergencies, and Paul was there without hesitation to offer some advice and get us through the tough times. Steve, Lynn and Julie, what can I say? For going so over and above, particularly for Mum in these last few weeks. We can never ever repay you or express our thanks enough. for everything you've done in those last few weeks. I know they won't want to be mentioned, but I'm sorry I just had to. So I'm sorry to embarrass you guys, but we can't thank you enough. Finally, through tough times as well, a beautiful Rainy. Tough for all of us, tough obviously for me. People used to say, I don't know how you're handling it, Greg, in these last few weeks, but I can tell you the reason that I could handle it is because of my beautiful wife. Couldn't have done it without her. But in closing, I've been up here long enough, but in closing I'd just like to say that, look, for me Dad's greatest gift was his gift of time. The boys sort of alluded to it in their lovely words, that Dad had time for all his friends and family. He took the time to listen, he took the time to nurture these fine young men that they've grown into. He'd laugh with and love everyone that meant something to him. And for me it's been a privilege to grow up as Dad's son, and even a greater honour to become Dad's best mate. And I love you, Dad, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Greg. It's now time for us to commit Bob's physical body to the elements. Before we do that, however, let us each be thankful and grateful for Bob's life. I'm going to ask each of you to pause and remember the impact that Bob's life has had on your own. You'll each remember Bob's life by the memories that he leaves behind. Now, those of us who feel deeply may grieve deeply. No philosophy or religion ever taught to us can prevent that natural reaction from the human heart. We come into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing. However, it's those memories that we leave behind with family and friends. They're a mark of our life success. I'm sure you'll each agree, Bob was a very successful man. Bob, in grief at your death, but gratitude for your life, and for the privilege of sharing it with you, we now tenderly and reverently commit your body for cremation. As your spirit and soul rise from your earthly being, know that your family and your friends are here to say farewell. Earth to earth, dust to dust. We bid you peace, we bid you farewell. Please feel free this afternoon to join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. Well, today you've all come together to say farewell to the Bob you know. But you now greet the Bob who will live on in your thoughts and your memories. Please rejoice in the happy memories of Bob's life. We are grateful that he's lived, grateful that we've seen his face, heard his voice, felt the touch of his hand, shared his love, and shared his mateship. Once again this afternoon, on behalf of all of Bob's family, thank you again so much for your presence here today in the chapel. If you've joined us online, once again, thank you so much for your online presence. When the service concludes, the family's going to be heading over to the tea rooms. So it's back across, up in the top corner of the car park. You'll see a walkway across. The family would love each and every one of you to join them for a cup of tea, a bite to eat, perhaps raise a glass or two in honour of Bob's life. But as I mentioned earlier, and most importantly, you've each arrived today. You're carrying your own memories of Bob. You're all carrying stories. There's a chance that a few of you in this room might even be carrying a story or two that maybe most haven't heard before. When you get together at the tea rooms, find someone who hasn't heard the story or the memory that you're carrying and share it with them. The more stories that we share, the more memories that we share, the more that Bob will live on in your hearts, your memories, and in your thoughts. So once again this afternoon, on behalf of Helen, the family, thank you all so very much.
Chances are, 'cause I wear a silly grin the moment you come into view. Chances are you think that I'm in love with you. Just because my composure sort of slips the moment that your lips meet mine. Chances are you think my heart's your Valentine. In the magic of moonlight, when I sigh, hold me close, dear. Chances are you believe the stars that fill the skies are in my eyes. Guess you feel you'll always be the one and only one for me. And if you think you could, well, chances are your chances are awfully good. Chances are you believe the stars that fill the skies are in my eyes. Guess you feel you'll always be the one and only one for me. And if you think you could, well, chances are your chances are awfully good. The chances are your chances are awfully good. Chances are, 'cause I wear a silly grin the moment you come into view. Chances are you think that I'm in love with you. Just because my composure sort of slips the moment that your lips meet mine. Chances are you think my heart's your Valentine. In the magic of moonlight, when I sigh, hold me close, dear. Chances are you believe the stars that fill